Welcome back to the Fine Homebuilding House here in Prairie Village, Kansas. I'm Travis Brungardt, and I'm here with Chris Fein, our friend and architect from Forward Design and Architecture. Chris, you're the brains behind all this beautiful material you see behind us and the way it all works together. Because we're very near the end of the project, I wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of explain how you chose these materials and the textures and colors that they create, sort of all these moments that you really brought together on this. Will you talk us through what we see?
Right, so what you see is the bulk of the house is hardy cement board with battens that is detailed to mimic kind of traditional mid-century board and batten construction, with brick at the front and a couple of key locations in the back. So the brick becomes a kind of a cornerstone material that contrasts with the kind of board and batten to tie it together. And then we have these kind of steel window surrounds that kind of reappear in multiple places that become the transition between the kind of materials, between the brick and the window or the board and batten.
What I would consider to be the most prominent feature on the house, without question, it's what you see from before I even see the front door, which is a bold splash of orange. We see these metal boxes that sort of splay out and allow more light in, but they also solve more than one problem for us. Talk about that.
That's right. So we have an inside wall that runs full height that the windows are set in, and we have an outside wall that's set on the foundation that gives us this kind of depth. So that allows the masonry to read as a really heavy, deep wall, punched opening like a massive brick wall. Sure. And then the steel windows act as this kind of transition that solves that problem. And so we're dealing with the kind of interior spatial condition and exterior implied spatial condition and the transition between those materials.
Just one of your magic tricks on this house.
Just trying to, take those moments that are typically problems and turn them into solutions and design moments. We unify the windows, which are oversized, but we want all of those windows to read as kind of one larger opening instead of a whole bunch of smaller openings like you'd find on a traditional house. So you want it to feel like really big, and they are big, but they feel even bigger because they're then tied together and painted out as the same trim color, which you will see when we go around the back. We do it in kind of all the big windows are tied together to read more like window wall than punched openings. Now the two punched openings in the heavy masonry wall read as punches because they're in a masonry wall. So it's about kind of playing that game back and forth.
Before we head to the rear elevations, I wanted to just briefly, because we put so much work into this, and I know you put a lot of work into it in the drawings, it took a little bit more effort in the field for us. I did want you to talk about why this corner of the house matters and what you did here.
Well, so this corner is a prominent corner because it's a high spot as grade is dropping away. As you approach up the street, you kind of, this corner becomes really kind of the moment that you see. And we were really concerned because this is also where the foundation, the siding come together and how we make that transition and step. So what we did and what Travis pulled off quite well is that horizontal line tracks, and we use the windows as the kind of offset transition between the concrete and the siding. So it becomes an exposed concrete corner, but a very intentional exposed concrete corner, that alignment tracks from this corner all the way around the house. It establishes the kind of horizontal datum that everything is then built up from versus kind of hanging down.
And for a framer or a siding contractor, this seems totally insignificant. This transition to them happens wherever the sheet breaks. But I have to say, having done it and seen it wrap the house, it's subtle, but it's really important. So it was worth it.
Every corner you go around, it's continuous. It doesn't, you see a lot of houses where it jumps and you'll get a jumping line from corner to corner, around corners, and that stuff drives us architects crazy.
Yeah. It's one of those details that disappears when done right and stands out like a sore thumb when done wrong.
Right.
So Chris, we've talked about the brick elements on the front and the importance of that mass, but just real quickly, talk about bringing it here to the rear elevation.
Well, so what we did was we took the brick from the front, comes to the back, and it becomes this kind of retaining wall that's holding the screen porch and the stairs down. It's acting as the kind of mid-level between the yard and the interior finished floor, because we've got this huge transition because there's probably 4 or 5 feet of slope from the front of the house to the back of the house. And so we've got a level backyard, level front yard, and this kind of offset. This splits the difference, and this brick wall becomes the kind of tie around that links it and unifies it, and then visually it becomes the kind of support for this giant cantilevered screen porch.
Which worked out really well. We're now inside of the screen porch on the rear elevation of the home, and this is a space that the family's going to use all the time for entertaining and enjoying the outdoors. But just like we talked about those very critical lines around the exterior of the siding details, we've got a lot of that going on back here, especially here at the custom screen door.
Right, and so you'll see that the custom doors, there's 2, and they're oversized and designed to line up with the railings that are guardrail height to keep us from falling through our screen porch, because we are elevated here at the same level as the finished floor, which is probably close to
About
7 feet above grade. So we added the cable rail within the screen porch so that the screen porch openings were large. That set the datum for code, which then establishes the line of where the screens live in these doors and where the screen lives in the walled area, because there's a wall there because as you can see still, the grill lives in its own little room open to the sky, adjacent to the screen porch, but not in the screen porch.
Which is perfect because you don't need screen getting smoky and having to be cleaned. That works out really well as a transitionary space from sort of the butler's pantry out to the grilling area. And because of the hinges you selected here, we're able to come out with our 2 hands on the barbecue platter and push through and serve, or push back through and go clean. That's a hinge that we haven't used before that really worked out great in this location to be able to swing it both ways. This was one of the greatest concerns for me back here. Obviously, we've done a ton of railing, we've done decks, we've done screen porches. Tongue and groove ceiling is just the same as the soffit, but there's a large volume of it here to enjoy. But this element was really critical to catch the smaller dimension in the same scale as the posts, and then that's repeated across the top. And to nail that alignment is one of those things, again, where if you botch it, everybody sees it, and if you make it, then nobody notices.
When you do your job right, it just goes away.
That's right. Well, Chris, this wraps us up here at the Fine Homebuilding House in Prairie Village, Kansas. On behalf of Joe Cook and I at Catalyst Construction, I really want to thank you for your leadership on this project. All these little details that I hadn't thought of before, you brought to the table and really helped us get it over the finish line.
Well, from our point of view, really working with your team on the building science side of things and how to merge that with the kind of architectural solution to the details was a learning process and really fun. And I don't think we could have asked for a better end result for this family and hopefully generations of families to come. So thank you.
Well, that's it for us here in Prairie Village, Kansas. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you learned something. We'll see you on the next one.